Dawn, and as the sun breaks through the piercing chill of night on the plain outside Coram, it lights up a biblical famine, now in the 20th century. This place, say workers here, is the closest thing to hell on earth.
Coram was, in a way, more like a concentration camp than any refugee camp that I'd seen before.
Seen from hell, frankly. I mean, most extraordinary place on the planet.
You drive along the plateau in Wallow to a place called Alamata, and then you start going up a very windy road, and then you appear right at the top on this incredible plateau. I suppose it's 2,800 meters, something like that.
It's the residue of a volcanic crater, vast undulating plain. People just going as far as the eye could see, just camping in the open.
You feel that, well, this is the end of the world, you know. People dressed in rags, sleeping under just a piece of cloth. It was a terrible situation.
There's not enough food for half these people. Rumors of a shipment can set off panic. As on most days, the rumors were false. For many here, there would be no food again today. Death is all around. A child or an adult dies every 20 minutes. A tragedy bigger than anybody seems to realize, getting worse every day.
The story, as it had been presented by the press and most aid agencies, was simple. A drought had caused the famine. This was largely a natural disaster. But as ever, the truth was a little more complicated.
The famine in Ethiopia was not, you know, rain failure. I mean, there was a bit of rain failure in it, but actually the Ethiopian government was fighting a war against the people of the north who wanted, in effect, to break away. So the government was deliberately starving that area, and that really had led to the famine.
They were destroying crops, they were stationing garrisons in areas and stopping people from moving around and trading and selling their food, etc., etc. And the combination of those things then grinds down a poor and drought-affected population to a position of famine.
The aid was saving thousands of lives in the refugee camps, but the food that had been provided by Western governments and the UN was also being used by the Ethiopian regime to fight its wars.
Vast amounts of aid rushed in, put a lot of food aid into that situation without adequate control and monitoring, which is what happened. You end up aiding and abetting a counterinsurgency strategy, and indeed feeding a lot of that army, and that's actually what happened.
There is quite a lot of evidence to suggest that the government was practically running the war on the basis of this aid operation. They artificially altered the exchange rate so that they could make a huge profit on all the money that was coming into Ethiopia. They siphoned off, in effect, a kind of tax, which helped them run the war.
This is without doubt the most massive catastrophe that has been visited upon this planet.
As the aid program intensified, the Ethiopian government embarked on a policy it said would end the problems of famine once and for all.
Ethiopia's Marxist government has begun a huge operation to resettle people from the barren areas of the north to the more fertile land in the south.
The resettlement was ostensibly about relieving population pressure on the drought-stricken, famine-prone highlands and creating new model socialist villages down in the lush green south. But of course, the other reason for doing that was the great Maoist counterinsurgency strategy of draining the sea from the fish, so draining all the population out of an area, and so you just had the rump of your enemy there and you could fight them more easily.
Tens of thousands of often sick refugees were being rounded up from the camps and taken away against their will. The Ethiopian government used food aid to help draw them in.
We were in a certain place south of Korem, just distributing dry rations. And then once the people had gathered in those distribution or relief centers, then they were easy to surround. So we were used as baits in a population trap, a bait to attract, to lure the people, to attract them to these relief centers, and then send them to, well, to the south of the country. Tens of thousands of people were dying in the process of being resettled, to the point that in '85 we realized that more people were dying from forced relocation than from the famine itself.
Ronnie Brauman went public in his criticism of the Ethiopian regime's resettlement policies. The consequences for MSF were instantaneous. They were expelled from Ethiopia.
It provoked the government, and I was being blamed for that. I was told, you, David, you are the ones who brought these people, and now they are working against the government. They are talking about the government. You are your own people. You handle them properly, rein them, tell them what. So it created difficulties for me. I supported the idea of them being kicked out of the country because these were sensitive times, and it had to be handled with care. What they were, the kind of statement that was coming out from the MSF was reckless. It didn't help.
Brauman and MSF asked the other aid agencies to join them in condemning the resettlement policy. They all refused.
The Red Cross says that the expulsion was hardly surprising, considering the allegations made. Other agencies have kept silent. Save the Children Fund saying they'd have made representations at local level rather than going public.
Do you think now that you should have been more critical of this policy?
I think we played quite a good game in Ethiopia. That's to say that we stayed in touch with the Ethiopian government.
We didn't want to become an enemy of the Ethiopian government. We kept quiet. We handled it in, I suppose, what you might call a diplomatic way, but there were elements of compromise in that position, certainly.
We agreed to hold the line of all the other NGOs to recognize the problem, to sort of not condone it in any way, but not to step over a line where we might all get thrown out. You know, I feel an element of, I suppose, naivety and shame about my understanding of this program. I was 23, probably nearly 24 by then, and I think I just didn't know enough. I knew it was, you know, morally wrong to force people onto trucks and drive them south and take them away from their families in the middle of the night. But I just didn't really understand, I suppose, the extent of the sort of political agenda and all that. I wasn't quite sure whether the Ethiopians were just misguidedly trying to do something that was good, but getting it wrong and being misguided, or whether they were being brutal Stalinists, basically.
We took a sternly impartial view, but we also took the view that this operation had to be run with the Ethiopian government, or effectively not at all. If you wanted access on the Ethiopian side, the Ethiopian government had to be, to a degree, accommodated.